Okay, welcome to Real Truth Talks. This is about putting this on the M&T series, the M&T Story, the wounded warrior and the autistic that loved him. And this is kind of my story, a really condensed version as far as it relates to me and my wounded warrior. It's February again. This month is 11 years since my oldest baby girl at 25 was murdered by her father. And as far as that relates to our story is I met Mark I guess late November. No, I actually remember seeing him before my birthday, which is mid-November. So in November of 2012. And Tanea was killed in February 17th of 2012. And in the by the next February, on February 14th, that's Valentine's Day, I had met Mark and already met Mark, and that's actually the day he proposed to me. And the ring would be, I have to do it this way. It's a heart-shaped ring. And yeah, so this is the first year without either one of them. And if any family or anybody who sees this, typical Aspie, I don't get angry easily, but I hate injustice and I hate lies. And the people that have talked crap about me should have their mouths washed out with soap. Because Mark, to me, I didn't know I could feel like that for somebody. He was, I don't like to use the word magic, but it was ethereal when we were together. And I knew he was hurting. And for somebody who's lost a kid, well, I've miscarried two. One I knew was a baby boy. And, I've lost parents, siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends. But my daughter was 25. And she defined me. I had purpose. I knew what I was. I was a mother. And she was amazing. My first husband, I came to find out, 7, 8 years into being married, 7 years. that he was a Luciferian, which truly felt like I had become part of the Twilight Zone. It seemed so unreal, but it explained so much. And I spent my entire marriage scared, like almost every single day. Because once I found out what he was and what he did, and he controlled us by fear, or controlled me, do what I say, when I say it, how I say it, and the threats to myself stopped working, like personal threats to my life, my safety, and then he would threaten my family. So, it was a terrifying existence. But once Tanea found out, and my goddaughter, some of the things my first husband was involved in, they told me like I didn't know, but I did. And it came down to my daughters were going to leave. If I didn't, how can you do this? How can you put up with it? We'll leave. And we have a place to go. And they did. They did. My family was going to take them in. So I prayed and ran. I spent my whole life protecting them. And then Ten had gotten married. And she married a very wounded military man. Well, she married a military man who became extremely wounded. And it was more than she could handle. And she had told her dad, because you can run, but you can't hide, and he found us, and all kinds of good stuff. So that was my life. Me and God protected my kids and protected my family. And till she moved away with her husband. And they were only gone a month. And she told her dad that she was done. And she couldn't talk to him. And I remember when she told me that she told him. And a fear ran through me. I never believed he would really hurt them. But they always did. They said, he never really cared. He'd do anything he could to hold on to some semblance of me. Anyway, when she told me that what she had told her dad, this fear shot through me. It was like a cold ice wind, and it was, kind of a fear had gripped my heart. And I said, are you sure that's a smart thing to do? Mom, I'll be okay. I'm always okay. I was her saying, don't worry about me, I'm okay. I'll always be okay. And then 10 days later, she wasn't. I had no plans to ever marry again. When I met Mark, I'd been with my son's father, and we had left. I had left him. Long story there. My second husband was a polygamist. and that was fun. And because I had miscarried our last child in June of 2011. And it was Tanea that had told me I was pregnant. And I'm like, that's impossible. I had my tubes tied. But guess what? She was right. And I found out she was right when we lost him. Much farther along than, I thought I was. Because, I didn't believe it. And our world collapsed. I mean, it was me and the girls. And the girls, it was just us. And they helped me take care of the boys. We did it together. We did everything together. In fact, we had plans because my second daughter, biological daughter, was married. And we were all planning to move to where they were, and it was in Washington, D.C. And we were going to move there. That's just what we did. We did everything together. And, yeah. I wasn't diagnosed as an autistic. Everybody knew there was something different about me, but it was like, oh, she's just so smart. Smart people are weird. Okay. And that's just, I don't know. I always felt less than because I didn't know there was something, what this autism thing was. Didn't even hear about it until my oldest biological son was 8, 9, 10 years old, and he was diagnosed at 11. And filling out all those questionnaires, I found out, oh my gosh, this sounds familiar. Like, wow. And so I started researching. That's what I do. I'm really, really good at researching. One of the things I do. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like me. So I talked to his psychologist and, the counseling team for him. And I said, this sounds like me, and they're like, all right. And, you have stacks and stacks of questionnaires and paperwork, especially for an older person. Interviews, and they're like, yeah, that sounds like you. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I cried for 2 years because I was like, things made sense. Which leads up to, we have a lot of comorbidities, is what they call it, or coexisting conditions. Anxiety was one of them. I was afraid of everything. And I hadn't flown. For instance, I hadn't flown for 20 years when I met Mark. And when I was with him, I felt strong, and he made me feel beautiful and okay. Like there wasn't anything wrong with me, right? I felt like I mattered. I was important and safe, except for when he was going crazy, which I just attributed to he was wounded. He was a wounded warrior, and we just vibrated on a energy level that I got him. I understood him. He didn't even have to say a word. And the more I found out, it just, I don't know, we were just in sync. And I loved him. I was drawn to him. I don't like using the word love because everybody uses that, and what does it mean? But I got him. And I just, I would have done whatever it took for us to be with him. to go where he was. So much that I was getting on planes and flying by myself, and it was a kind of a thing in my family because we were all spread out. I'm kind of like all over the country. And I'm like, well, nobody better get sick, or have an emergency because, I'm not flying. It was just everybody knew I wasn't going to get on a plane. And everybody knew about my panic and I had panic attacks, crippling, to the point of, for a few years, just going out of the house was almost impossible for me. And here I am traveling all over the country. Just to get to see him. Now, part of it was his crazy, was his insecurities and his fears and whatever was going on in his head. He would call on the computer and Skype for hours. Like when he wasn't around or he was traveling, I have to go to sleep. And I did it, I'd carry the computer around with me and then when he was up in Canada, it was a cell phone, and he just always wanted to see me, and silly me, I thought it was, he loved me that much. And well, he did love me that much. But it set off all these fears in him that I didn't realize how bad they were, right? And like I did it. I would carry the phone around or the computer around. I always I could breathe when we were together, or I could breathe when we were together, and it was good. I didn't understand his not trusting me. I thought it was me. And that's one of the things my brother said. He's like, all anybody has to do is question your integrity, and they've got you because that's the one thing you don't understand, because, I will tell you the truth. But with Mark, his insecurities were so deep and so bad. Signals get interrupted and he'd freak out. And people call me human garbage, and believed all this crappy stuff about me. But every person that was close to me in my world saw me light up when Mark was around, saw, me going from being terrified to flying all over the country to meet him, to be with him. And my panic attacks ended. After 10 was murdered, they disappeared. It was like when your worst fears happen, I spent my whole life trying to protect them. And then all of a sudden, this bizarre, unthinkable thing happens. And it was much more involved, and it was bad. And, you doubt yourself. I'm the one that married the man that killed her. Orchestrated the hit. And I don't know. I mean, in the end, love won, and I was able to. He's with God, and he's with my daughter and my babies that I didn't get to meet, and my dad, and his mom, and his sister, and his grandparents, because he opened the door to Jesus, the door of his heart. And he got to be the person that I knew that he was, that I would see sometimes. There was almost nothing that I already knew that I couldn't I would forgive. I mean, I would always forgive him. Always, always. And so he was a very giving person. And I fully believe he was an addict because I know how much he loved me and the kids. But he acted like he didn't for a while. I mean, he betrayed us. And that's what addicts do. It's just a hard month. It's a hard month. Because my daughter's last week was a very rough week. And she was such a beautiful person. And she was the best big sister. And she loved her mom. She went through a typical little bit of rebellion, and one of her sayings for everybody was, for her younger sister, was, that's just mom. Well, mom's mom. She may not make sense, and she does things backwards or weird. But before she died, I was blessed to have that, for her to tell me. She said, Mom, maybe you didn't always do things right or the right way. She said, but I always knew how much you loved me, no matter what. You hear that word unconditionally, but completely. I like that. She loved me. She would say, I knew you loved me completely. And she says, that's why you showed us God. And I want to thank you for that. Some parents don't ever get that. And it meant a lot to have my daughter's blessing. And I was so lost. Because they were just out of, we called it my bubble. They called it my bubble. Because we were single for a while, just single family, single momming it with the boys and her and her sister. And they didn't always live with me. She didn't always live with me, but she lived 2 apartments over. She was always really close by. Always there. And she adored them. Every one of them. And I was really, really lost. And, the things between Marcus, I just couldn't comprehend what was wrong with him, what was going on. I was always trying to fix it. I took so much of it personally. I love that man, and he knew it, and he knew what he was doing was wrong, and that just amped up his drinking. Um, and he was so lost in his pain, he wasn't, he couldn't really help me because all I needed from him was for him to be around and to be calm and to be just his sweet self, which I knew was in there. My best friend told me today or yesterday, she said, you know, that's got to be really horrible for you because who he was at the end was who you knew he always was or could be. And all that time you lost. That's really gotta hurt. That's what it does, you know? You miss them both so much. It's the 14th. He turned into a good day because we just didn't celebrate Valentine's Day in my family. You know, between us we did, but and he made it special. And he would usually take me for a motorcycle ride, or we'd be gone on the 17th just to keep me occupied. But when things were good and when he was around and they were good, my world was right. Just like with her. Whenever she was around, or as long as the girls were just here, my world was okay. And he helped to fill that void. And when things went bad and he went dark, I lost it. I went into such a dark place that it was horrible. It was horrible. I lost all hope. It was like losing her 10 times over. But this year is good because God has shown me how faithful He is. And just knowing He's in heaven is good. And so is she. Anyway, that is February for me. And just a little bit of my story, which kind of blends into our story. So, I mean, happy Love Day. February is a love month. And I have a lot of loved ones in heaven, and a lot. My babies and my grandbaby are still here. Some of them my babies. Half of my babies are still here. My biological babies. My Hanai family's here. And life is going to be okay. Couldn't say that 11 years ago. 10 years ago. It's hard being left behind. But I'm stronger and wiser. Yeah. Lots of scars. But I think scars are beautiful. So, Haters have got to learn to keep their mouths shut. Stay out of people's marriages. Stay out of relationships you don't know anything about. Because how you judge other people, you will be judged. Yeah, been on both sides of that. So, I love my baby girl. I love the sweet Sarge. And life continues on. And we live on to honor them and honor our Creator with the knowledge that we'll be back together someday. So, happy Love Month, and we'll talk later.